Her name was Sarah. She lived on Arch Street in Philadelphia with her 2 children, a boy of 6 and a girl of 3. Her husband Thomas was a clerk in the quartermaster's office at Camp Curtin in Harrisburg. He earned $13 a month, paid in paper. In February 1862, those $13 bought flour, rent, coal, and left enough for a modest savings at the Girard Bank. By December of that year, those same $13 bought flour and rent, not both in the same week. Sarah did not know the word inflation. She knew that the butcher on 2nd Street had started writing 2 prices on his chalkboard, one in paper, one in gold coin. She knew that the paper price was higher every Monday. She knew that the 4 gold double eagles she had inherited from her mother, $80 face value, were worth more at the end of every month than they had been at the beginning. Watch what happens. By July 1864, Thomas's 13 paper dollars will buy what $5 bought at the start of the war. Sarah's 4 gold coins will be worth over $200 in paper. And when the war ends, the government will spend 14 years deflating the currency back to gold parity. The mortgage on the small house Sarah's father left her, taken out in cheap wartime paper, will have to be repaid in dollars worth nearly double. The house will nearly be lost. This is the story of Sarah and Thomas. And it is the story of what happens when a government prints money to pay for a war, and then tries to stuff the money back in the bottle afterward. February 25, 1862. President Abraham Lincoln signs the Legal Tender Act. The man who drafted it, Representative Elbridge Spalding of New York, calls it a war measure, a measure of necessity and not of choice. Treasury Secretary Salmon Chase supports it reluctantly. He does not believe in unbacked paper money. But the banks in New York and Philadelphia had suspended gold payments in December. The Treasury is empty. The Union Army needs to be paid. The act authorizes $150 million in United States notes, Greenbacks. They call them, for the green ink on the back. They are legal tender for all debts, public and private, with 2 exceptions that will define the next 20 years of American financial life. Customs duties on imports must still be paid in gold. Interest on government bonds must still be paid in gold. That distinction, gold for the government, paper for everyone else, is the crack in the foundation that will split the country for a generation. By the summer of 1862, a dual economy is forming. Sarah goes to the grocer on 3rd Street. He accepts her greenbacks, but charges more for them than he would for gold coin. The premium starts small, 10%. By December, it is 29%. $100 in gold costs $129 in paper. Thomas writes home from Harrisburg. The quartermaster pays in greenbacks. Prices in camp have gone up. He asks Sarah to pull back from the Girard Bank and buy extra flour, while prices are still manageable. On New Street, just off Wall Street in Lower Manhattan, gold speculation has taken over a basement. The New York Stock Exchange has banned gold trading. They consider it unpatriotic. So the traders meet in what they call the gold room, where news of Confederate victories sends the gold price spiking. And the traders sing Dixie. Lincoln says he wishes every one of them had his devilish head shot off. Spring 1863. The greenback is worth 71 cents in gold. Sarah's butcher no longer writes 2 prices. He writes 1, the paper price, and if you have gold coin, he gives you a discount. The coins Sarah keeps in a tin behind the kitchen stove are now worth 40% more in paper than they were a year ago. She has done nothing. She has not speculated. She has not traded. She simply held something real while everything paper lost value. Thomas has not been paid in 3 months. This is not unusual. Soldiers are supposed to be paid every 2 months. They are often paid every 4, sometimes every 8. A Union private earns $13 a month, a number set at the start of the war and not raised until June 1864, when it goes to 16. Too little, too late. At peak greenback depreciation, Thomas's $13 is worth roughly $4.50 in gold terms. July 11, 1864, Confederate General Jubal Early's forces come within 5 miles of Washington. The gold premium hits 158%. $100 in gold costs $258 in paper. Congress, enraged by speculators who seem to profit from Union defeats, passes the Anti-Gold Futures Act on June 17, 1864. It bans futures trading in gold. The result is instant and the opposite of what Congress intended. Without a functioning futures market, uncertainty increases. The gold price rises further. Congress repeals the law 2 weeks later. Sarah's neighbor, a widow named Mrs. Kessler, had sold her late husband's gold watch and coins for greenbacks in 1862, believing that paper money was money. By 1864, those greenbacks had lost a third of their value. Mrs. Kessler eats twice a day instead of 3 times. She takes in laundry. Sarah leaves a bag of potatoes on her step every Saturday. She does not say where they come from. April 9, 1865, Lee surrenders at Appomattox. The gold premium drops. By summer it settles near 45%. Greenbacks are worth about 69 cents in gold. Thomas comes home. He is thinner. He has his accumulated back pay, several months' worth, in greenbacks. They use it to repair the roof and pay down part of the mortgage on the Arch Street house. But here is what nobody told Sarah. The war is over. The money printing is not. Treasury Secretary Hugh McCulloch begins withdrawing greenbacks from circulation under the Contraction Act of April 1866. The goal is straightforward. Bring the greenback to par with gold. Make one paper dollar worth one gold dollar again. This sounds responsible. It sounds prudent. It is catastrophic for anyone who owes money. Here is the mechanism. Sarah's father took out the mortgage when greenbacks were worth roughly 67 cents in gold. The monthly payment was set in nominal dollars, paper dollars. As long as the greenback stayed cheap, the payment was manageable. But as the Treasury pulls greenbacks out of circulation, each remaining dollar becomes more valuable. The payment stays the same. The dollars become harder to earn. MCCULLOCH withdraws roughly 44 million in greenbacks before a recession halts the program. Congress stops the contraction, but the damage is done, and the trajectory is set. The Resumption Act, signed January 14, 1875 by President Grant, mandates full gold redemption of greenbacks beginning January 1, 1879. The architect is Senator John Sherman of Ohio. The mechanism is steady deflation. Wholesale prices fall roughly 55% between 1865 and 1879. Sarah's mortgage, taken out in cheap wartime dollars, now has to be repaid in dollars worth roughly 50% more than when the loan was made. A farmer in Ohio who borrowed $1,000 in 1865 and repays in 1879 is effectively paying $1,500 in real terms. The wealth transfer runs in one direction, from debtors to creditors, from families like Sarah's to the banks and bondholders. Government bondholders are the biggest winners of the entire war. They bought Union bonds with depreciated greenbacks. They receive interest and principal in gold coin. The return, adjusted for the greenback to gold spread, is enormous. The Greenback Party organizes in May 1876. Its presidential candidate is Peter Cooper, the 85-year-old founder of Cooper Union. In the 1878 midterms, the party wins over 1 million votes and sends 14 members to Congress. The anger is real. The mechanism is clear. The government printed cheap money to fight a war. Then it made the money expensive again. And the people who suffered most were the ones who had borrowed during the cheap money period, the ones who trusted the system to be fair. July 9, 1896, 31 years after Appomattox, a 36-year-old congressman from Nebraska, named William Jennings Bryan, walks to the podium at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. He delivers the most famous speech in American political history. You shall not press down upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold. Bryan loses to William McKinley. The Gold Standard Act of 1900 formally makes gold the sole monetary standard. The greenback era is over. On Resumption Day, January 1, 1879, the Treasury opens its doors expecting a stampede of citizens demanding gold for their greenbacks. Almost nobody shows up. The public has decided that paper money backed by gold is as good as gold itself. Sarah is 61. Thomas is 63. The mortgage is paid off. The 4 gold double eagles are still in the tin behind the kitchen stove. She never sold them. She never spent them. They were her inheritance, and she held them through the entire war, through the inflation, through the deflation, through all of it. Her neighbor, Mrs. Kessler, the widow who sold her gold for greenbacks in 1862, never recovered. She died in 1874. Her estate was valued at $11. Notice, what did not save them? The banking system did not save them. Banks suspended gold payments at the start of the war and paid depositors in depreciating paper. Government bonds paid handsomely, but only if you bought them with cheap greenbacks and held for gold redemption. The average soldier's family did not own bonds. They owned paper dollars and debts. The Greenback Crisis did not end with the war. It ended 14 years later. And the people who suffered most were not the speculators in the gold room. They were the families who borrowed in cheap dollars and repaid in expensive ones. The families who trusted the system to be fair. The families who did not understand that the government's war, paid for with printed money, would be refinanced on the backs of their savings. Sarah kept her gold because her mother told her to. Mrs. Kessler sold hers because she needed cash. That is the difference between surviving an inflation and being consumed by it. Not intelligence, not luck, just the willingness to hold something real when everything else is paper. The federal deficit is $1.2 trillion in the first 6 months of this fiscal year. The national debt stands at $36 trillion. Interest payments are running $88 billion a month, more than defense and education combined. The United States has imposed pressure on critical global shipping corridors, and the Federal Reserve cannot cut rates without risking a return of inflation. The question this history asks is not whether the government will print more money. It always does. The question is what you will be holding when it does.